hits. They could then, after that, heading into Super Tuesday, turn this into a two-person race. They also see the numbers. They know Trump's way ahead. But there's also been some reporting about the appeals hearing in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and then Lauren will win New Hampshire. It would be significant. And so that's where you have seen Donald Trump feel very comfortable about his position here in Iowa and instead turn his attention to the court hearings. Look, final 7 days of the Iowa caucus, but Donald Trump isn't even appearing in New Hampshire until third is able to give Donald Trump a run for his money, because Donald Trump has very much slow-walked his candidacy in terms of on-the-ground campaigning over the course of the last year, especially here in this final month.
And you can anticipate some venting from the former president as early as tonight. He wanted to speak in a civil fraud trial tomorrow. Now it looks likely that that is not going to happen. So they're trying really hard to kind of separate Trump from the videos, from the senators. They're not interested in pursuing a flat-out debate. Hey, you were a failure in the first term. If you hadn't been a failure, you'd have been reelected. They're not doing this. And so when you're campaigning from this position of fear, and that's what they are, you're asking voters, well, let's see, I'll give you what you like about Trump, but without Trump, that voter hears, well, I either want Trump or Trump light, but I can tell you that's what DeSantis world thinks. And as, the whole idea, so it's more of okay, you took your shot, you're not going to win, don't burn the bridge. I think we're seeing evidence of this, right? When a voter says to DeSantis, I think you're tough enough on Trump, right? He says, what do you mean I'm doing this, and this? He made a decision, he's just not going to do that. So I think in the way our short-term attention span works, right, are any of the 2016 candidates viable in 2024 other than Donald Trump, right? Marco Rubio not viable, Taylor's not viable. Ron DeSantis is not going to be viable in 20, but he thinks he will be. And then there's Nikki Haley, right? When Christie has been sort of complaining about this idea that when people are trying to push him out of the race, which, again, if you believe in stopping Donald Trump, Christie should be getting out. But I understand his frustration with Haley. I'll endorse you, but don't embarrass me and become his running mate. Yeah. Because then all of a sudden, it's glorified the same thing Christie ended up doing 8 years ago. He's without him. Whatever you think of Nikki Haley has had a successful career without Donald Trump. Yeah. He'd prefer to find somebody like him.
Let me ask you a good question. You were talking about Chris Christie. He said yesterday of Governor Sununu in the state of New Hampshire, he called him a liar for suggesting he was going to be dropping out.
It was a weirdly angry retort.
He was really angry in that moment, but were he under some circumstances?
Right. I have to say, I think that he's actually doing Nikki Haley a bigger favor by doing it now. The question, I think nobody believed he was going to stay in the race.
You mean if he has to drop out?
He's doing this, and he would actually be doing it. He's got a 1% chance without finishing second. Okay. Yeah. But her odds go up if he can go back in Iowa. Knock out the campaign last more than hours if he doesn't finish second in Iowa. And then just getting out before this debate, if that is what's happening, and there's all sorts of chatter, so we're not going to, if he is doing that, he is doing her a huge favor.
The irony in all of this, is if she gets to South Carolina, that actually could be a great role for her, right? She may not have the support she needs in her own life. Chuck, nice to see you. I appreciate your being here with your expertise. Coming up, how House lawmakers reacted when the president's son crashed his own contempt hearing in the House. That moment and what the White House is saying about it is next. You are watching Meet the Press now. Push forward with their investigations into President Biden, his family, and his cabinet, starting with the surprise appearance by Hunter Biden and his lawyer, who crashed a public meeting held by the House Oversight Committee. Biden has refused to comply with the new subpoena to sit with the...
You are the epitome of a congressional subpoena to be deposed. What are you afraid of? You have no balls to come up here and...
Mr. Chairman, put an inquiry.
Mr. Chairman?
Out of context and distort them. So they say that he's willing to testify, they just have to be public. Now the Republicans don't accept this view at all. They say that's not his decision to make. They're the ones who control the House, they're the ones who control the gavels. They issued a subpoena, they set the terms, and he didn't comply with it. And so they just voted moments ago, the House Judiciary Committee, after a long day of debating this, some of the theatrics we saw earlier, voted 23 to 14 along party lines to hold Hunter Biden in contempt. The House Oversight Committee has yet to follow, but we expect that to be a similar result, Peter.
So let me ask you about what else has been going on at the Hill. House Republicans held their first impeachment hearing in the Secretary Mayorkas, of course, the Homeland Security Secretary. But do they run the risk side out here of being too eager to jump into these impeachments?
Persuasively, impeachment always tends to make somewhat of a even some who have typically sided with Republicans and bad at your job as much if the Justice Department does not charge Hunter Biden, does not prosecute him for that contempt citation. So this is sort of where they are. I think we have a response from the White House here responding pretty aggressively. Let's show that on the screen. Brooklyn and Sam says House Republicans are treating impeachments like an Oprah audience giveaway. They're disregarding the Constitution for the sake of cheap, baseless political stunts. Give you a flavor of how the White House is going to continue to combat all of this, Peter. They've secured some additional spending cuts in the form of offsets, COVID, unspent funds, and additional IRS cuts. These Republican hardliners say that's not enough, and they wanted to show him that they're very serious in protesting this. It's a real president, and one lesson that Republicans are learning, at least some of them are learning, is that you can't change the math of Congress by replacing a speaker.
I always appreciate your expertise and your reporting. Thanks for speaking with us. And coming up next right here on Meet the Press Now. What Congressman? Who's next? You're watching Meet the Press Now. Here in Michigan, here with Americans. Joining me now in South Carolina, Congressman Jim Clyburn, Assistant Democratic Leader and one of the national co-chairs of the Biden re-election campaign. Congressman Clyburn, it's nice to see you. I appreciate you making time to speak with us right now. I do want to ask you, in recent months, you told one of our colleagues that you're confident that black...
That's not concerned. I believe very strongly that this president has done what is necessary to earn the support of African Americans all over this country. But I'm also concerned that when we report these results, they don't always tell the full story. And still on debt, we need to learn the best of that side of the program. The president attempted to reduce and eliminate student loan debt in 5 different categories. Stop from doing so. Keep pursuing the other 4, which resulted in $132 billion in the lawsuit.
I apologize for interrupting. Many things have been quoted. Also, certainly Republicans blame the president every which way as it related to student loan debt. But as you speak about these concerns right now, what specifically can the president do?
People of this country with their freedoms, that to me demonstrates that the president is on track. And I really appreciate it. Both those.
Would you rise to the level where the secretary needs to step down or someone else to serve as the next secretary of review?
Absolutely not. Maybe he should have spoken earlier. He thought he was going in, as my understanding is, for a simple in and out procedure. And that happened. Except that 4 or 5 days later, complications set in. Now, that changed the dynamics to demonstrate what a good father Joe Biden is. We all, maybe not all, but I have children. And I'm concerned about that. And I want to be a good father to them. And I'm not going to let any office I hold go in the way of being a good father. And I think that's what Joe Biden is doing here. And I'm
And he defended his endorsement of DeSantis with an op-ed in the Des Moines Register yesterday, saying the competition for DeSantis is a good thing for Trump. I'm going to read just a little more of what he said to get your reaction. We are now endorsements, along with my vote for DeSantis.
So every criticism has to be some sort of bench-shot criticism. It has to be coupled with praise for the president.
Would be just as happy to see him not to.
And of course, Trump is going to say, I'm being silenced once again by this judge. Which is entirely predictable, which is what he's been saying the whole time. So, does him saying that one more day and one more circumstance meaningfully help him to move the needle? I doubt it, but you know, it's his choice.
Congressman Levin, your reaction for the president or the president?
Gaza. It's very rough right now.
You know, Joe Biden, we should know, is going to be going to Michigan and Nevada, and of course,
And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. He needs to get out.
well, the argument has been made by a lot of Democrats. He's got to get to some of these battlegrounds, not named Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's true. And Michigan is just going to be massively important. The huge question.
Interviewing said that Joe Biden in the end of the day, I don't think he's come off as a good guy.
Congressman, you're allowing me to say what the health is. We have to go through one of the this hour right now. Campaign news. not from Iowa. Chris Christie is suspending his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination. The former New Jersey governor and most outspoken Trump source in this race will make an announcement will told in just a few minutes at an event to take place in New Hampshire. Sources tell NBC News that Christie is not a few weeks to here in Iowa to get his support in New Hampshire. He could, Hillary could continue to alien voters who need to have a strong story here, but then she would win in New Hampshire. Yeah, hey, by the way, excellent reporting, and can I say from you right now, all of a sudden it makes New Hampshire a little bit more interesting, right? Who can gather what is separation between Trump and Haley at roughly 6, 7, 8 points?
A lot of people. It's a meaningful constituency to be had in that particular state. And if Nikki Haley is betting her entire operation on doing really, really well, and surprisingly well in New Hampshire, then getting Christie on board with her, no doubt, would be quite a coup. The question I think right now is, what might Christie's team be trying to extract from Haley World in exchange for the most important endorsement of the moment?
We want to show you live pictures right now as we can show you what's happening in New Hampshire as we anticipate the former governor of the state of New Jersey, Chris Christie, to deliver that announcement that he's suspending his campaign. Ramesh, just your take on this right now, and how do you think this sort of, is this enough to sort of change the dynamic of this race right now? Because it's not like there's some other anti-Trump candidate in the race. Every other candidate has sort of been Trump, as I said, Trump adjacent.
Well, I think those would go to win with the case, not specify where they would go. As to whether it makes it
conversation, just thinking on the fly. I mean, what happens to the Liz Cheneys, the Chris Christies? And, as we talk about the margins and the potential for erosion for Joe Biden right here, is there potentially some erosion of Republicans?
We have at least 2 parties that are in there honestly duking it out over policy. We disagree with each other, whatever. But this does not bode well for the Republican Party, having the kind of reckoning it needs to have and coming out.
Will replace this seat, but again, the staff here telling us they still want to make sure that people in this third district know that their office will be open for here now. It's a pretty strong words from the constituency.
strong and, as you say, colorful. George Solis, thank you so much.
The state hospital saying it was operating at 200% capacity, and he reported there was a bonus 50 minutes away from the hospital, and that is a huge source of concern for them. Who told me that they lost 20 hospitals in the north.
They were supposed to go in and check essentially on the hostages who were being freed, with no know what their condition, how they're doing in the next steps.
Yeah, well, those checks have not happened, that according to the uncle of you can hear there the desperation in his voice, the desperation of the families, and yet no progress made at the negotiations, at least no progress in different Israeli cities and military bases, to even the method by which these gunmen would play out on October 7th. And the Times says that this intelligence was...
We're bringing meteorologist Bill Perez. Again, Bill, you are the bearer of bad news. I hate to say it. Let's start out in the Pacific Northwest. These atmospheric rivers are fueling some of these bad weather systems, right?
Yeah, we saw a lot of these atmospheric rivers last winter. That's what gave us the epic snow and rain to fill those reservoirs up in the west. So they can be good in that sense. But you just don't want all this rain at once, because then you get the flash flooding concerns in the high elevations, the heavy snow, too. So here's our atmospheric curve. You can follow it off the coast. Here's the Pacific Northwest. Then we have one storm here. Then here's the second storm for Sunday. And these atmospheric rivers...
Here we learned days ago that Chauvin had been stabbed in prison. There were questions about his condition. At the time, his family, his lawyers, trying to understand what had happened to him here. Now we're getting some new details from this indictment. Talk us through.
Yeah, basically what we're learning is that the stabbing was not just a one or two incident. It wasn't just a...
But again, ultimately to make a diagnosis, well, you can treat flu, right? We have antivirals. We can treat COVID. We can't treat RSV. So again, if the symptoms are mild, probably not a big deal. More medically high risk, and you really want to know so that you can institute outpatient treatment? Yes, and you want to know. What about vaccines?
Hey, Holly, yes, Senate lost all of that lead contamination. The bigger question tonight, Holly, and their 14-month-old Rudy last month, the Callaghans were shocked when Rudy was diagnosed with lead poisoning after a routine one-year checkup in August. The FDA announced proposed industry limits on the lawsuit, but the company says it has set up a fund to reimburse people for helping their dogs across the country so sick. But the number of cases is hard to track.
I have a little bit of a thread there. What people can do to avoid this. Hold on that thread, right? People want to know. Yeah. How do you avoid this dog illnesses? This is actually pretty similar to what we tell you to do to avoid any of the common viruses or colds. That's over the COVID kind of duration, and a lot of people not traveling. So this makes this time very important that people
just do not have enough books. We're successful in getting kids ready to read.
What does B say?
So this is how the process is going to play itself out. He's now been expelled. He's already officially been removed from office. You see them taking down the signs and changing the next 70 to 90 days. From there, the candidates will be fielded. Democrats already have candidates. Republicans already have candidates. See before George Santos did. So it's a name that members of that district be replaced. It would mean Republicans only have a one-seat majority. That's something that is a real possibility.
Drama months, if you go back to the beginning of the year, right? What's the vibe among some of the folks that you're talking to on the Hill, specifically on the GOP side? Is it a sigh of relief? Is there a concern that this could foment even more division inside the party? Give us a sense of it.
I mean, it depends on who you talk to, and many of us can't tell, but I think part of what you're talking about right now, that concern about the balance of power, many Republican members, take a listen to what many of them really on top of why I think you see George Santos no longer in Congress. These Republican members were just sick and tired of revelation after revelation after revelation.
You find out this crusher of voters around it. I know that you're
In Congress, people have to take it seriously. And when you have a guy with that kind of track record, and all the stuff that he has done that's really off the charts than what he's done, it becomes a distraction.
Yeah, something else that a lot of constituents were doing out here is taking selfies for them to basically capitalize on the moment that George Santos was expelled from office. But speaking of what happened, now the duties here fall on the House floor to basically field any questions from the constituency. The director staff, because it's been a while for them from the moment we arrived here in this process. I mean, they worked so well to continue to do their work. Just giving you a sense of just how maybe they were set up with all of the distractions of what they were eventually represent your third congressional district. But a lot of colorful language here today here at House. We just about saw and heard it all.
George Solis, thank you so much from the view from New York there. Appreciate it. Let's take it overseas now. There's some other headlines because intense fighting is happening inside. And David, let me start with you here. The war now back on. Talk about the military operations happening inside Gaza right now and what Israel is embracing for next. Regional conflagration here. So talk to us now about what they're fighting back on inside Gaza. What is happening to the north, right? And I think we can shoot people know Gaza to the south, Israel in Israel, Lebanon to the north. What's going on there?
Yeah, pretty much as soon as the fighting resumed in the south in Gaza, there were aggressions in the north as well. Israel says that it used fighter jets and helicopters to strike at Hezbollah targets north of the border inside Lebanese territory. Hezbollah said that it used rockets to attack Israeli artillery and other positions on the south side of the border in Israel. You're right, this has been one of the main concerns since this war started, is whether and to what extent and when it might spread throughout the region, particularly in the north. I think it's too early to tell whether this sort of early burst of mutual firing across this border heralds a further intensification of the conflicts along that border.
Spokesperson Admiral John Kirby held a call with reporters as that. According to this indictment, this inmate
Also, he chose it, according to prosecutors, because of its connection to the Black Hand symbol of the Mexican Mafia. The AP is reporting that this inmate was a former gang member. He was a former FBI informant, apparently convicted of crimes that he committed as he was that